Hello everyone, and welcome back to Our Eyes on Indie. My name is Finn, and it is my absolute pleasure to bring you our review of Witchfire here in Early Access. It's finally out. This is a game I've been so incredibly excited for ever since it got announced back in 2017. It's finally here though, and the question is, was it worth the wait? Is it worth your money? Is it worth your time? Does this have a future as it is in Early Access? Well, those are the questions we're going to be answering for you today. This is by the Astronauts, the same people that brought us The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which is a really great game. It's a walking simulator kind of game in terms of you're going around, you're experiencing the narrative, you're figuring things out. And while a great game, Witchfire is a completely different genre entirely. It's this first-person shooter, kind of an extraction, a little bit of Destiny in here. It's really interesting, and it's got a whole lot going on. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, in Witchfire, you play as a prayer, and a prayer is this fight fire with fire that the Vatican and the Pope has decided to use against the witch problem that's currently going on in the world. So you play as this prayer, you use magic, you are this immortal being that uses witch fire, which is an essence that powers magic that witches cast to essentially live, stay alive, feel your powers, and to always be able to come back no matter what happens to you. It's a really cool premise if you're like me and you really love this kind of, ooh, what's this like dark spin on things? I've always enjoyed this stuff. It's one reason why I like vampire hunters like the Belmonts or Van Helsing. It's just really cool to me how this gets together, and I think the whole system that goes on here is really neat. But you're sent to this remote area to find this witch and hunt her down. She's also taken this artifact from an ancient shipwreck, and your job is to get it back, but also not open the box and see what the artifact actually is. So, what is it? Well, unfortunately in Early Access, we don't have a resolution at the moment. But it's certainly a great premise, and it gives you enough of a reason to go out and fight all of these witches' armies and different baddies that happen to be in this land that you're at. It's really cool. It's a great setup, and the game throws you right into it. After a quick little cutscene, you're at your base of operations, and it's like, all right, here's a brief little tutorial. Now it's time to get going. So real quick, let's talk about these graphics here, because the game looks fantastic. I've had a lot of pop-in issues, I will say, whenever I load into the Hermitorium or into any of the zones that are currently in the game. I have a lot of pop-in that happens, and textures take a couple seconds to load, but it's nothing that hinders my experience, and then it looks fine throughout the rest of my time throughout the game. And I want to give a big shout out to, first and foremost, the fact that as soon as you get to the main menu and click continue, you're right in. There is no load time at all. You're just straight in. You're in the Hermitorium. You're ready to go. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. And it is just something that I'm so happy to see, that I don't have to wait through another loading after the main menu to get into the game. It's awesome. I also think the designs of everything are very, very good throughout the whole thing. From the way the prayer looks, so you're a very menacing looking witch hunter, to the enemies. They're all very neat and interesting to see. I always know what I'm looking at and what I have to deal with that. The locations that are currently in the game, which are only 2, are varied from each other. I'm able to tell where I'm at. There are plenty of landmarks, so I can go, oh, okay, I know where I'm going. The map, also, huge shout out to the map. Alright, the map, when you open it, has little creases in it like you're looking at cloth, and it is so awesome to see that. I just love the little details like that. Everything on the map is clear. I know exactly what I'm looking at, and I go, oh, okay, this thing is here, that thing is there. Great. Everything I need to know. I also enjoy how the health and stamina bars are. They're like little kind of tallies, essentially, just drawn in. I like how that looks. It's this kind of hand feeling to it, like it was handcrafted, and I really like it. It kind of just brings me into the world with everything. Also really like the guns in this game. They're very well designed in terms of, they're pretty basic looking in a lot of sense. Like, sure, your bolt action rifle looks like a bolt action rifle, but just the way the barrel looks and just the polish on it, it's super nice. And your handgun that you start with the backs of each of the bullets having a cross on it, I think is super cool. Now, sound and music in this game, also fantastic. Just gotta say, the audio direction is wonderful. I'm able to tell, oh, if there's an enemy over here, I can typically tell what kind of enemy it is based off the footsteps or the sound its attack makes, or even finding certain items they make noises. It's great. Being able to tell what's where, what's this, who's that. All the weapons have their own nice sounds to them. They feel like they have just the right amount of punch for me. It's great. It's wonderful. And the music is awesome. Okay, I love the music so much. It's this very subtle when you're going around, and then when you get into certain combat, there are these strings that come in, and it gives this eerie feeling where it's like you're up against this almost daunting task of this powerful witch you're up against, and it's just you against her, and it has you on edge like, ooh, is this going to end well for me? And I love it. It makes every fight just the extra bit intense to it, especially because this game is actually very, very hard. And oh man, let's actually get started on this gameplay here. So, like I said, Witchfire is a pretty hard game, but what exactly are you doing in Witchfire? As I said earlier, it's kind of this weird mix of like Destiny and Tarkov and all this stuff. So let's break down what happens when you get in the game. You have your Hermitorium, which is your main base of operations. At the Hermitorium, you're able to equip different guns, spells, relics, all these items, do some research, make some potions, and all of these things you're going to use on your expeditions. Expeditions are currently limited to 2 areas in the game right now, as the rest are locked because they're not finished developing them yet. The Scarlet Coast and the Iron Gate Keep. So, you start off with the Scarlet Coast, and to unlock the Iron Gate Keep, you have to defeat the Witch's Familiar, otherwise known as the boss, of the previous area to be able to access it. It's a nice little start where you're like, okay, I got this area, I'll go in. And this is where the Destiny/Tarkov begins to take shape here. Because what happens is you load into a map, and the map is the same every single time you go there. But where everything is, in terms of enemies, chests, events, those are randomized. So you're going to hop in and be able to recognize right away, oh, it spawned me at this part of the map. What is where? And what am I going to do based off of that? And that's where the Destiny is it's this map that you jump into, like the EDZ or Europa, and you're able to go around and be like, okay, I kind of like know where this is and that is, but there are a couple random things here and there that change a little bit. And so that's where the Destiny comparison is. The Tarkov area is the fact that you get it and you don't have to go and fight the boss. You can just leave. All you have to do is either return to the portal you came in from within a certain amount of time, or head to one of the other portals on the map. You're then able to extract from those portals and head back to the Hermitorium. So that's where the Tarkov extraction shooter style shows up, because you're going, man, how much can I push my luck? How much do I want to do? And this also kind of relates to the Dark Souls aspect of the game, because you're collecting Witchfire as you're killing enemies, the thing that fuels you, keeps you alive, and keeps your powers going. You then bank that Witchfire by going back to the Hermitorium and able to spend it at the shrine to level up your stats and therefore your character. So every single run, when you're pushing that luck, you're like, oh, if I do one more encounter, ooh, do I go for the boss? But then if you die, all of that Witchfire is gone, and that means you gain nothing. You gain absolutely nothing from that. So it's that big give and take of, do I go for this next thing, or am I looking a little beat up? Do I need to get out? And there are a lot of mechanics in the game that help go along with this. Let's go ahead and talk about, first off, we're going to talk about research first, okay? Research is something that you're going to get at level 3, and we already talked about how you level up. That's the simplest thing in the game. Get the Witchfire, level up your stats. But researching allows you to get new guns, new spells, the relics I talked about. It allows you to get some materials you need to upgrade your guns and your spells. It also allows you to get some arcana, which we'll get into in just a moment. But research is simple. You don't require any resources to start researching. All you do is pick up to 2 researches at the mirror in the Hermitorium, and those research projects are progressed automatically as you spend time on an expedition. So that's one of your main ways of progressing, even if you lose that Witchfire, is because, okay, yeah, I wasn't able to get out with my Witchfire, but hey, I was able to get some time and therefore get something new. The other way you can progress, even if you're losing Witchfire, is with your guns and spells and relics with their Mysteriums. Mysteriums are kind of like mods from OG Destiny 1. Back when you'd do certain things or get a certain number of kills and a new mod would unlock and it would do something different with your gun. It's the same concept here. Starting off with the hand cannon you start with called Hunger, it has 3 Mysteriums, as does everything else in the game. And the Mysteriums start off like this. When you get critical hits with the Hunger, your next reload will have a certain number of charged shots based off of how many crits you got. So with a 6-round cylinder, that means you have the potential of having 6 charged shots with your next reload. The second one that makes it so after you reload, your next shot on a body is guaranteed to be a crit instead of just a regular hit. It only counts for 1. But it's still really cool. And then the last Mysterium you get on Hunger is if you get a crit for all 6 shots on the previous round, then your next reload starts with a freezing shot for your first bullet, which of course freezes the enemy. And so it's this nice cool, oh, I understand what this gun is for. It's all about critting. And I crit, I get more crits, it gets more damage, but also I can get freeze, which then of course lets me deal more damage. It's really cool and goes on through. Definitely one of my favorites with that. There's also a sort of submachine gun you get that has this heat bar you have to manage. You've got shockwaves with a bolt action rifle. They all have their own different things and it's all really cool. Now, also spells have Mysteriums as well. And let's talk about these spells really quick. You can equip 2 different spells. You have a light spell and a heavy spell. Obviously, one has a longer cooldown than the other. Now, you use these as any way you see fit. I tend to use the ice one, alright? So we're going to talk about that. An ice light spell. It shoots this big shockwave of ice out and it freezes enemies in its path, which then allows me to either deal with the enemies I didn't freeze or deal some good damage on the ones I did. Then my heavy spell that I use the most is the bell. And this is one of my favorite spell designs, just period. I think it's super cool. You throw out this bell and it stuns all enemies in the area. And then to get it to ring again, you have to shoot it. And it's this simple little thing, but it makes the spell so much more interactive, and it just makes it feel that much more impactful. Now, one thing I did have to learn with this too, and this is just something to think about with how you can build your character, is, okay, if I'm using Hunger, for example, shooting the bell does not actually count as a crit. So if I want to get a freezing shot, I can't shoot the bell. With Hunger, I have to use my secondary weapon. Because you get up to 3 weapons. 2 of them are regular and 1 is a demonic weapon. Currently there is just 1 available. It's a crossbow. It's really cool. It has the hungering arrow thing. If you've played Diablo 3 Demon Hunter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it will hit a target and then it will go to seek out another and another until it ends up dissipating. So that's your loadout stuff besides relics. Relics are all kinds of different things. I've had one that makes it so when I dash and I leave behind this bomb that will explode after a few seconds, dealing some damage. And then I had another where if enemies get low on health, lightning will come from the sky and deal some damage to finish them off. So they're all over the place. It's really cool. Same with the spells. And I gotta say, shout out to the spell designs in this. Like, yeah, sure, ice is simple and whatever, but the effects just look really great. The shockwave it sends out, the freeze effect, it just looks wonderful. Alright, I love it when magic looks super cool in games like this. But we've talked a bit about the loadout now, so what are you actually doing on these expeditions, right? Like I said, you're going to be fighting this boss at the end of an area. That's your big goal. That's what you want to do. But perhaps you just want to get in, get some Witchfire, and get out. How are you going to do that? Well, like I said, the enemies are different and there are events and chests, alright? Your big thing you're going to do is look for these dangerous areas. That's going to be your fighting arenas, essentially, where enemies are going to spawn, you kill all the enemies, and that is going to net you some extra Witchfire, but also is going to net you coagulated Witchfire. And coagulated Witchfire gives you Arcana. And Arcana is one of the roguelike kind of elements to this game. I'm throwing a lot of genres in here, but it's this kind of mismatch. Arcana is split into 3 different categories: firearms, spells, and varia. And what these each are is, obviously, one affects your guns, the other affects your spells, and the last one affects you as a prayer. Out of each of these rows, you're going to be getting 2 of them to unlock. It's going to be all kinds of random things, and you can research more at the workshop. Now, the thing with these is they are just specific to that expedition. As soon as you leave or die, they're gone, and they range from making it so you don't lose Witchfire should you happen to die on the expedition, or maybe making it that when you get kills, you get to reload for free. It's really cool. They go all over the place, and it adds that kind of roguelike element, and it makes it feel really good because you go, man, this is like a really good one. I got some really great arcana that merge well with how I like to play, or sometimes you get some that you're like, maybe I'll just take some extra max health. That's still fine. It still has some impact. There are a couple of times where I got some spell ones and they were for fire spells and I was using ice spells, so they were absolutely worthless. Or in my first run when I didn't have any spells at all, I got some spell ones and I was like, I can't do anything with this. And that was okay. I just went and used some of the other ones that I got from those rolls and it worked out fine. But you're going to be fighting these enemies. You're also going to have to contend with different traps from the witch that are set out. These range from these exploding bushes to these gatekeeper totems that are really annoying. I still hate them. You would then also have chests, some of which are just supply chests that you have to unlock by getting keys. Others are ammo chests that are left for you so you can get more ammunition. You then also have events, and I do want to say events are the one thing I haven't really enjoyed in this game. And here's why. One, they all boil down to being basically the same thing. There's one where you find a tombstone and you have to follow this wisp and also fight off enemies that spawn. And then there's another that's a soul lantern. Enemy spawn, you have to kill them and avoid the spirits they leave when they die. And they're okay. I think I would like them more if the rewards felt a bit better. You get a little bit of stuff, but it's not much. And speaking of getting stuff, let's actually talk about the other stuff you can get on a run, because there are a couple of other things. First off, there is crystallized Witchfire, which is your one way of keeping Witchfire when you die. Because trust me, like I said, you will die. This game is pretty hard. That's your way of banking some Witchfire and being like, okay, I have some stuff so I can level up. Your second thing you're going to be getting is treasure. Now, treasure is something you're typically going to find on the ground. And what that is something you're going to pick up. It has a curse chance on it that you will either have to try and roll with your luck and hope you don't get cursed, or spend some of your Witchfire to cleanse it. You're then going to be able to take that back, and you can trade in treasure to speed up research at the workshop. It's kind of cool. It's this nice little thing where I've gone, okay, I don't think I'm getting out with enough Witchfire to level up. Maybe I'll just spend some on some treasure that I find throughout so I can speed up research and still make some progress. It's a cool way to reward you for a run, despite the fact that maybe you don't have enough to get what you wanted. The other thing you're going to find are white raven feathers, and these are used to actually reroll the arcanas that you get rolled. It lets you reroll, also lets you pick a second one from the same row of one you've already picked before. I like that. I like being able to change things if I've done stuff in the thing. It rewards me for playing longer in an expedition and allows me to be like, okay, I'm getting more powerful as this expedition goes on. But not only are you getting more powerful, the witch is becoming more and more aware of your presence the longer you spend in an area, and she can summon cataclysms. Cataclysms are, the best way to put this, bad, alright? And I mean that in a good way. Cataclysms are one of the coolest mechanics in this game. I love it. Alright, it's so much fun. Because what they are is they trigger with a bunch of different ways that they could trigger. If you're triggering traps that are out there, the witch becomes more alert to you, or perhaps you've spent too long here, she starts to be like, wait a sec, I sense something. Or even when you get too injured, these things can start a cataclysm, and this is based off your luck stat as well. But these cataclysms spawn a cataclysm area that you need to go to and shoot some skulls to stop. or you're going to have it trigger. When a cataclysm triggers, you can still stop it the same way by shooting these skulls, and that ends it. But when they happen, you also get a secondary condition to deal with here. One of them that can be incredibly annoying, but also incredibly tense in the best way possible, is the one where assassins spawn, your health is capped at such a low amount, and you either have to kill a certain number of enemies or find that cataclysm and get rid of it. It's super cool. It's one of my favorite mechanics in this game because it really helps with that risk and reward factor of, do I stay? What if a cataclysm triggers? Am I going to be able to deal with it? Is it close? Is it going to be on the other side of the map? You just don't know. And you don't know what kind of cataclysm you're going to get. There are a few different ones. The assassin one just happens to be my favorite. I kind of want to leave the others so that way you get in and you're like, oh, this is cool. But it's just so neat. And I love it. You also have to deal with your sanity going down as the cataclysm happens. You don't want that to hit 0. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's super neat. Definitely one of the cooler mechanics. Now, combat itself, let's talk about that really quick. I've talked a lot about mechanics and stuff that goes on, but how is combat in this game? It feels a lot like Destiny with the shooting. The shooting feels very reminiscent of that, and I think that's fantastic. Shooting in Destiny has always been just really great, and it's nice to see it translated over to here with how it feels. Every single gun just feels nice, and the feedback against enemies feels great as well. But there are some other cool mechanics in combat as well, namely the focus mechanic. So there's a stamina bar in this game, and the thing with it is every time you kill enemies, your maximum stamina increases, and it continues to increase up to a cap. When you reach that cap, you enter full battle focus. And when that happens, you not only have a ton of stamina, but whenever you dash and are looking at an enemy, a soul sigil will appear. If you shoot that, it stuns the enemy, and when enemies are stunned, they obviously aren't attacking you, but they also take increased damage. It's this really cool mechanic that is also similar to Returnal's adrenaline mechanic, because as soon as you take any sort of damage, all that focus is gone and your stamina resets to whatever your base amount is. It's really cool, and it rewards you for playing well, and it punishes you though, and it can punish you dearly. If you happen to get swarmed, it is pretty easy to snowball into a game over, essentially, because the other thing is whenever you take a hit, you lose stamina in general, and whenever you lose stamina to a point, you become tired, and then you become exhausted. And when you're tired and exhausted, you actually take more damage. So it can spiral and snowball into this, oh gosh, I just took a hit, oh gosh, I'm taking more hits, I can't dash or sprint or jump out, and I'm dead. Just like that. It all just kind of goes together. But I really enjoy it. I think it makes this game very enjoyable and rewarding for when you're doing well. And when you take a hit, you just gotta go, okay, time to get better. Now, another really cool mechanic with this game, and this is going to help the longevity until more content gets released, is the fact that new stuff gets introduced not by run, but by your level. As you level up, the witch understands that you're getting more powerful and is going to put more defenses out there. So, for example, when I started off, it was some pretty simple, go fight some enemies and stuff. Then, as I leveled up a little bit, traps got introduced. And then the warden got introduced. And oh my goodness, I didn't even talk about the warden. The warden is this ghost spirit that hunts around for battlefields and comes to the sound of your gunfire. And if the warden ever spots you with its light, then it's going to trigger this fight against these cultists. It's really tough. But I will say with the warden, and this is just a note, if you have long-range weapons, it's pretty easy to take it out without ever having to worry about it finding you. You just have to kite around and understand how it's going to track your sound as you go around. But that's just one thing to know. It's a minor little thing. The warden's still super cool. It took me a little bit to figure out I could actually kill it without just straight up alerting it that I was there. I thought as soon as I'd shoot it, it would just start the fight. Nope, not the case. That might be something to consider. Now, really quick to wrap up this whole gameplay section, because it's taken a lot of time, because there's just a lot to cover. The bosses are really good. Alright, the first boss is fun, it's tense, it's great. I remember fighting it. I was able to cheese it a little bit, kind of on accident with that frost spell and the Hunger's Third Mysterium. I was able to just keep it perma-CC'd and freeze, so that made it a bit easy. I've since gone back and fought it again without doing that. It's a good boss fight. It is, and the boss of Iron Gate is fantastic. I gotta say, a lot tougher, but has a really cool mechanic I'm not going to talk about here. If you play it and you get to Iron Gate Castle, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There are also other things I'm just not talking about here, because just saying, I like to keep it spoiler free. It's fun when you experience this stuff and you go, oh, wait a second, that's a thing? Or, oh, that can happen? It's really cool. So, is Witchfire worth your time and money? Well, that's gonna come down to a few things. One, do you like games that are difficult? Because as I said, this game is difficult. You're gonna find yourself dying a lot, especially as you learn the game. So beginning, you're going to be dying over and over and over again, more often than not. But that's okay. I found it super rewarding, but I'm also the kind of guy that loves these kind of things and loves learning mechanics and seeing myself grow and get better. Now, the second thing that you're going to have to think of too is that right now there's not a whole lot of content in the game. Like I said, there are 2 maps, and while I have no issue running around both of the maps, some people might, because you're doing the same things over and over again. You're going in, you're fighting groups of enemies, and then kind of deciding, do I want to leave or do I want to fight the boss? That's just how it is. I don't have an issue with it. I find it rewarding. I find the progression rewarding with the research and with the Mysteriums. I'm still working on leveling up all my guns with their Mysteriums as well as the spells. And it's just one of those where I currently am like, as soon as I get done recording this, I'm gonna go play more Witchfire, even though I've experienced all there is to do on the maps. I've beaten both of the bosses, I've fought the enemies there, I've, as far as I'm aware, gotten to a point where I can't unlock anything else by leveling up, just getting stronger. The only thing I have left are to get some more relics and arcana from the research, but that's enough for me. The gameplay is super tight, the combat feels great. It's fantastic. So if you're good with that and understanding that, hey, this game's gonna get updated until it's fully fleshed out, you've got a lot of good stuff ahead of you here. So that's the review of Witchfire. It is an absolutely great game, if you ask me. I'm going to be playing this a ton, and when the next big update comes out, and the next area comes out, I'm going to be playing it even more. Like I said, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to go and play some Witchfire, because I am killing this witch no matter what it takes. My one-man crusade shall persevere. But if you want to know, this game is available exclusively on the Epic Games Store for $39.99. It is well worth that price, especially with the future ahead with all the areas left to come out. I'm curious to see what other kinds of guns and spells are going to be on the way as well. And of course, when that next major update comes out, we will be right here to give you a review on it as soon as possible. But until next time, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you know when that update comes out and you are ready to hear all about it. Also hit the bell because we upload reviews, well, as much as we can. It's been a little difficult with just myself with a broken wrist and all the games coming out. Hard to split your time. But man, this one took some priority for me with how long I have waited for it. Well worth the wait for me. But like I said, until next time, my name is Finn. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And we'll be here with our eyes on indie.